My parents taught me to say thank you for gifts, then turned me into one, the kind you swipe until the strip wears out. By the time they announced I'd give my sister $15,000 at her wedding, their running total on me already read 47 grand. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I'm 30 and live in Columbus, Ohio. I rent a second-floor walk-up that smells like clean laundry and coffee. I keep a spreadsheet for everything. My grocery budget, my steps, even which houseplants like the north window. The spreadsheet I didn't mean to create was titled What I Gave My Parents, and the sum at the bottom pinned, my jaw to my desk, $47,000. That number wasn't theory, it was Zelle receipts, Venmo transfers, cashier's checks, and 2 credit card payments I made to help for now. It began at 19, with $300 for mom's crowns that insurance messed up. Then it was $1,200 for dad's truck alternator the week before Christmas because we can't get to work if it won't start. I covered a delinquent gas bill one February so the pipes wouldn't freeze. I sent $2,800 to help my brother register for a semester when he lost his scholarship appeal. Over 10 years, the asks just kept coming. Urgent, righteous, and phrased like I was part of a family payroll they never had to approve. The wedding announcement turned the quiet siphon into a flood. It happened at my sister Lily's bridal shower in March, on a Sunday eaten by lemon tarts and the smell of peonies. Mom stood and tapped a butter knife against a champagne flute. "One last surprise," she sang. "Our oldest is gifting $15,000 for Lily and Grayson's start. Isn't that love?" She spread her arms to absorb the applause that broke over my face before I could move it. I clapped because I had a camera on me and an aunt on both sides. I clapped while calculating what $15,000 would do to my down payment. I'd saved $18,500 toward an FHA loan and a small, steady life where no one could let themselves in with the kind of key you can't return. Mom hugged me and whispered, "We'll need it by May 1st to lock the venue balance, honey. Don't be late." Then she smiled big for a photo as if she had handed me the bouquet. Except there was a problem they didn't expect. I am an accountant. I am the wrong kind of person to surprise with numbers. That night, I opened that spreadsheet. I went line by line. $600 for Grandpa's pill machine, need now. $3,500 temporary for Dad's dental implant until his bonus. $1,750 so Mom could cover Pastor S' pledge, which I learned later was a quiet promise she made in my name. $8,900 in 2 payments to rescue their mortgage from the edge when Dad forgot a payment, the installments stacked like bricks. I cross-checked my bank statements against texts where they wrote, "We will give back Friday and just for a week and you'll be made whole." Friday never arrived. The week stretched for years. Made whole turned into be a good daughter. By midnight I had a binder with tab sections, texts, transfers, checks, screenshots. I printed everything because paper is harder to gaslight. I ran a total twice. The number clanged again, $47,000. I added a new tab called Plan, but then I printed one more thing, a photo of me with Lily at Alum Creek when we were small, faces freckled, hair wet from the lake. That photo reminded me the wedding was about my sister, who never asked me for $1. Lily is kind enough to make room in a 2-full pantry, and naive enough to think Mom's lists are love. What I did next had to cut the cord without cutting her. On Monday I drove to the Columbus Metropolitan Library, 3rd floor, where the free legal clinic runs on Mondays. I didn't need a lawsuit that minute. I needed vocabulary. A volunteer attorney named Ramirez, who wore tired shoes and a tie with tiny bicycles, flipped through my binder. "What were these labeled when you sent them?" he asked. I showed him texts that used the word loan more than once. I showed him Mom's will repay when taxes hit message, sent 2 years ago. He nodded. "That helps. Unjust enrichment. Money had and received. Promissory estoppel. You could file in common pleas because of the amount. Before that, you start with a demand letter and give them a chance to repay." I asked him if a court would care that I was their daughter. He pursed his lips. "Courts look at facts. Family makes it messy, not impossible. Keep emotions off the paper. Keep receipts on." I paid $40 for copies, and 20 minutes later paid $180 for a consult with a consumer attorney, whose receptionist wrote a small smiley face on my receipt. The attorney quoted $1,400 for a demand package and pre-suit mediation request, with another $1,800 if we filed. I swallowed the cost. Anxiety has a price. So does peace. Back home, I did something practical before I did something brave. I opened a new account at a credit union across town, moved my direct deposit, and changed my debit card number. I removed Mom from my emergency contacts at my bank because she'd once used that status like a pass to pry. I froze my credit for 72 hours until I confirmed no new accounts bore my name. Then I opened one more thing, a trust account with one beneficiary, Lily. I seeded the trust with exactly $15,000. The account was simple. A payable on-demand wedding vendor trust controlled by me and, as of the rehearsal dinner, by Lily alone. Vendors could invoice the trust directly. No cash would touch Mom's purse or Dad's wallet. The gift wasn't money they could aim, it was a wall and a key. Until the group text arrived that Friday. Mom created a thread titled Wedding Logistics. It included me, Dad, Lily, and 3 aunts. The message read, "Reminder, $15,000 due by May 1 so we can lock Skyview Hall. Please confirm transfer date this weekend. We don't want to be embarrassed." Dad chimed in. "We have a 10-day window, so let's not play games. Family first." There it was again. Family first means me last. I typed slowly because anger makes typos. "I'm happy to support Lily. I'll be paying vendors directly via a controlled account. Please send vendor invoices to my email." I included the address. I felt the room thicken around me like summer. Mom's reply snapped back in under 2 minutes. "We are not doing that. Cash is cleaner. We already promised your gift to cover the honeymoon deposit and some household things." In other words, they'd already spent me. I didn't argue in the thread. I emailed the attorney screenshots and a summary. He sent back a draft demand letter that made me sit up straighter. It listed amounts, dates, and what had been promised in writing. It gave them 30 days to propose a repayment schedule. It offered mediation at the courthouse. It warned that failure to respond would lead to filing. The signature block felt like armor. I printed it on 24-pound paper. I didn't drop it in their mailbox. I sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. I also texted Lily, not to dump stress on her, but to draw a clean line. "You're my sister and I love you. My gift will go to your vendors. If anyone tells you that means I don't support you, please call me first." She sent back a string of hearts and a voice memo of her crying in the good way. Then she wrote, "Please don't fight with Mom. She's just stressed. One problem, Mom doesn't get stressed. She creates deadlines and calls them stress." The demand letter hit their porch on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Mom called, voice sweet like iced tea that hides the tannin. "We got your letter," she said, as if it were delicate fabric. "You need to stop listening to people who don't understand family. You know everything we've done for you." I said, "I do. You raised me. I'm grateful. This is separate. I'm not a checking account." She scoffed. "So you're going to sue your mother? In front of the church? Over money that helped your own house stay warm?" I looked at the tab labeled gas bill. $415.29. I read the text she had sent that day. "We'll pay you Friday." I said, "I'm asking you to keep your promises on paper. Also, regarding the wedding, I will only pay invoices. That's my boundary." Dad got on the line without saying hello. "You make one move toward a courthouse and you're erased from this family. Don't test me." I thought he meant disowned. He meant leverage. 2 hours later, my aunt texted me a paragraph about respect. A cousin posted a meme about ungrateful children. A family friend called to tell me the church was praying for my hardened heart. I didn't answer those calls. I started recording voicemail. For one-party consent states like Ohio, that's legal. But I didn't say that to them. I didn't say anything. Instead, I gathered vendor information from Lily quietly. The venue, Skyview Hall, had a remaining balance of $6,300 due 2 weeks before the wedding. The photographer's contract listed $2,100 due on delivery of proofs. The florist required $1,450 by the week of. The DJ had a $775 final payment, and the bakery needed $375 at pickup. I contacted each, confirmed amounts, and added them to the trust portal. I told Lily she'd be the signatory at the rehearsal. She asked if I was sure. I said yes, but then the attorney called with a bigger lever. While preparing a draft complaint, His paralegal noticed 3 payments I'd labeled mortgage catch-up had been made not to the mortgage servicer but to a personal account Mom used for household sinking funds. The memo lines on those checks read mortgage, but the deposit photos showed account numbers that didn't match the servicer, that didn't make the payments unlawful. It made them not what I'd been told. It also undermined Mom's story that everything had been to prevent a home loss. The paralegal also pulled Franklin County's mediation rules and found cases like mine that settled for structured repayment when texts used the word loan. Our texts did. We filed the complaint the week before the rehearsal. The document alleged unjust enrichment, money had and received, and promissory estoppel. It attached exhibits with a quiet ruthlessness. Exhibit A, spreadsheet. Exhibit B, texts. Exhibit C, copies of checks with memo lines. The clerk stamped the top with a date, June 7, 2024. A process server took 2 packets with a professional shrug that said families like mine paid his light bill. He promised service within 10 days. The rehearsal dinner fell on day 7. The rehearsal at Skyview Hall felt like a staged photo that might shatter if anyone breathed too hard. The windows were big enough to hold a river. Lily smiled with her whole face. Mom wore a blue dress that matched the table runners and a look like she'd planned the weather. Dad clapped Grayson on the back and shook other men's hands like he was running for a small office. We practiced showing up at the right time to the right spots. I stood where the coordinator told me and kept my mouth shut. At dinner, I sat midway down the head table. My envelope rested against my thigh like a warm book. When the toasts ended, Mom stood and did the fork on crystal thing again. Before we all head home, she said, "We just want to honor our oldest for stepping up with $15,000 so that Lily and Grayson start right." People turned toward me with that look you give a donor. I stood because some things land better when you're on your feet. I smiled because I wasn't here to burn, I was here to build. "Lily," I said, and my voice found its clear spot, "this is your gift." I slid a leather folder across the table to her and she took it like it might float. Inside was a 1-page letter in plain English. It said the wedding vendor trust held exactly $15,000 reserved for her wedding bills, payable only to the vendors listed on the following page, with her as controlling signatory by the end of the night. Below that were 5 cashier's checks made out to the actual vendors in the exact amounts of their balances, and a signed transfer form that would hand the trust keys to her at the stroke of dessert. Silence snapped, then whispers rustled like tulle. Lily's eyes spilled. She hugged the folder like a mouse would hold a cake. Grayson blinked hard and said, That's insane in the best way." Mom's face did a thing I'd never seen. Shock, then calculation, then anger trying to find a socially acceptable door. "That's not what we discussed," she said, smiling with teeth. "We need flexibility. The honeymoon deposit." I held her gaze. "The honeymoon deposit is not a vendor invoice. The gift is for Lily, not for anyone else's plans. She controls it now. Also," I took a breath. "Also, please consider this notice. We filed a claim to recover the $47,000 I've loaned over the years. There's a mediation date included. We can resolve it there." As I said the last sentence, a man in a navy sport coat appeared in the doorway like a stage cue flipped. The process server was polite enough to wait until I nodded. "Ma'am, sir," he said gently, and handed my parents 2 thick envelopes. He left before anyone processed that the show had another act. Dad's chair scraped back. "You did not just do that here." He was the only person standing besides me. His chest rose like an engine about to flood. I didn't move. "Sit down, Dad," I said. "We're not fighting, we're serving notice. We'll talk in a room with chairs and a recorder and rules. Not here." Lily looked between us, then lifted the folder with both hands. "Mom," she said softly, "this is the best present I've ever gotten. Please don't make this ugly." Her voice did what mine couldn't. It made Mom sit. But then Mom tried a different lever. She took the microphone from the DJ like she owned sound. "We love both our daughters," she said, voice velvet. "We don't understand this attack, but we forgive it. We will not be humiliated." I stood again. There's nothing to forgive. Money returned is not humiliation. It's balance. I turned to Lily. "The transfer form at the back gives you sole control. We can sign it now. The checks cover your balances. No one can cancel this gift but you." We signed while people pretended to scroll phones they weren't reading. When we were done, I handed Lily the smallest key I've ever made, just my name inked next to hers, witnessed by the coordinator. The DJ resumed. The air thinned. People began eating again because hunger doesn't care about drama for long. We didn't speak much in the parking lot. Dad pointed his finger at me like a warning triangle. Mom whispered, "You've broken my heart." I drove home on Broad Street with my windows cracked and the radio low, and slept for the first time in months without waking to a false emergency. The mediation notice came 2 weeks later. The date was July 22nd, room 12C at the Franklin County Courthouse. The mediator was a former magistrate with a haircut like a gavel, blunt, no nonsense. We sat at opposite tables with our attorneys. Mine wore the same bicycle tie. Mom brought a woman from church for moral support until the mediator explained who counted as a party. Dad's elbows lived on the table like they owned the wood. The mediator began with rules. One person speaks at a time. No shouting, no name-calling. This is confidential. He asked my attorney to summarize. She did in 3 minutes flat. Amounts, dates, the texts that used loan, the absence of repayment, and the wedding announcement where they pledged $15,000 more of me. Mom spoke next. She talked about diapers and soccer cleats and the year she stayed home when Dad's hours were cut. She said family doesn't tabulate love. She cried on the word love until the mediator passed her tissues without looking at my face. Dad leaned forward and said, "Everything we took, we spent to keep a roof and to honor our commitments to the church and our kids. We don't owe interest to our own daughter." "Good," my attorney said. "She isn't asking for interest." The mediator turned to exhibits. He held up copies of my texts and read them aloud. "We will pay you Friday. We'll return your $900 when the refund clears. You'll be made whole." He tapped the paper with a pen. "These are promises. This isn't about diapers 15 years ago. This is about the last few years and what was represented when money changed hands." Then he held up a photo of a bank deposit slip where my $3,000 mortgage catch-up had landed. "This account isn't the mortgage servicer," he said. "Where did this money go?" Mom dabbed her eyes. "Household needs," she said weakly. "Please be specific," he said. "Silence can build an entire cathedral in 3 seconds." Dad said finally, "Groceries, car repairs." Some went to the pledge. My attorney slid one more paper across. It was my demand letter with a proposed schedule. $1,000 a month for 29 months, then a $500 final payment, plus $2,000 to cover her fee. No penalties, if paid on time. A default clause that authorized wage garnishment after 10 days' notice. "Here's what I'm going to say," the mediator said, and his voice held both sides of the scale. "You can litigate this and spend more than you'll ever get back emotionally. Or you can agree that promises made about money have weight, even in families, especially when written down. You've got one child who saved and another who's trying to marry without a mess. Choose your legacy." The room got small. Mom's jaw moved like she was chewing regret. Dad stared at the edge of the table and measured pride. My attorney didn't speak. The other lawyer didn't either. It was the quietest I'd seen my family since naps were a thing. Mom signed first. Her signature looked like a bird that panicked in the middle. Dad signed after. The mediator wrote agreed judgment entry across the top of a form with a pen that probably had a drawer full of similar endings behind it. We left with a copy. The clock began. They wired the first $1,000 within the required 10 days. The courthouse doesn't do balloons for that, but my kitchen did. I taped the transfer confirmation to the inside of my cabinet like a strange private calendar. The second payment arrived early. The third arrived on the due date at 4:52 p.m. The fourth was late by 1 day, but my attorney sent a polite reminder and pointed to the default clause. The fifth came on time again. Sometimes compliance is a new habit people wear until it fits. Meanwhile, Lily and Grayson emailed me a photo from their honeymoon of them on a rented scooter with helmets too big. They also sent a scan of a note they'd left on my door while I was at work. "Thank you for letting our first week, as a married couple, be about us and not about refereeing. We'll never forget the way you protected us." There were consequences beyond wires. Mom stopped posting about blessings that arrived in the nick of time. Dad unfriended me for a week, and then refriended me because he wanted to see pictures of my hydrangeas like peace grew there. At Thanksgiving, the prayer was shorter. At Christmas, we opened gifts in the afternoon instead of holding our breath over a morning timer I didn't set. My aunt still thinks I'm hard. My cousin stopped sending memes. One afternoon in March, I met with my landlord to talk about buying the duplex when his plans changed. He offered first right of refusal to me because I paid on time and never called about a squeak I could fix myself. I opened my down payment ledger and smiled at a number that survived the storm. I told him I'd need 2 months. He nodded. You've got it. A week later, Mom texted, "We're proud of you." I stared at the words until they blurred. I'm not sure if pride means the same thing to both of us, but I let it be a start. I told her Lily was coming over for chili, and if she wanted to bring cornbread, she could. She did. We ate at my small table under a lamp my dad once fixed without asking for money. At month 12, the last payment hit. The next morning, my attorney filed a satisfaction of judgment and mailed copies to both sides. The envelope sat on my counter while I made coffee and watered the fern that pretends not to need me. I held the paper in my hands like it might turn warm. People will say money isn't the point. They're right until it is. Promises are the point, and money is how you measure whether people kept them. My parents taught me to say thank you for gifts. It took me too long to realize I was allowed to choose who I am a gift for, and when to stop being the kind you swipe.